My family and I were original members of the parish. We attended the very first Mass at Our Lady of the Intermediate School back in '78. My children made their sacraments here. My wife converted to Catholicism here, and she was sent off to the Lord from this parish. So I have deep roots. It's a parish that I love, and I appreciate the opportunity to do this. Social Committee does a great job in preparing, and as I was telling Bob before, we're going to keep doing this until we get it right. I think this is at least the third one that we've done. Many of you have been there, and I hope you enjoy it. Just a little bit about the background as to what we're going to be doing, and my background. I originally spent 35 years in corporate. I started with a very large company, ended up leaving a much smaller company. And after I was paroled, I went to work at Gary's Wine and Marketplace part-time and fulfilled my avocation, because I have a love of wine. It goes back a long time. I had started a number of groups at AT&T in Randolph, part of a gourmet group that's been in existence since 1981. It's still going, although not all the members are there. So it's something that I love. And I went to work at Gary's because he gave me the opportunity to be able to do private tastings besides working part-time. And the other great thing was all the top winemakers were coming through the Madison store, so we got to taste great wines. Got to go to, and I still get to go to all the distributor tastings, even though I'm not working in the store anymore. I've been able to use Gary's name throughout the world and with winemakers all over Europe. Been invited into their homes and have had some really fantastic experiences. It's beyond my dreams. I never thought my avocation could be so rewarding. At one point, when I was working at Gary's a few years back, I was tasting between 2,000 and 2,500 wines a year. You notice I corrected myself. I said drinking. I said tasting. Okay, so I have a pretty good knowledge, but the main thing I try to do with these tastings is to make wines enjoyable. There's just too many BS sometimes around wine. And when you think about it, it's a product that's basically 85% water, and you shouldn't have to be a chemistry major to be able to enjoy it. Of course, the magic is in the other 15%, right? So one of the things I aim for is to provide some knowledge, some enjoyment, and I'll try to demystify some of the myths. There's some really, and when you work in a store, you hear some really absurd stories, okay? So I'll try to take some of that out, try to talk a little about matching wine and food. This is your tasting. I will talk as little and as much as you like. I can talk a lot about wine. I'll try to answer your questions. If I don't know the answer, I will say I do not know. But generally, I usually have a pretty good idea, but I try not to fake it if I don't know. Okay, so here's the format. We're going to have, there's a total of 7 wines. I was given the charge of providing a wine tasting of wines from the U.S. and without too much concentration on California. Matter of fact, I had to talk them into putting in one wine from California. Right? It's hard to do a tasting about the U.S. and not include a California wine. Okay, so one of the things that I tell folks, you should use a tasting as a way to gain knowledge. Sometimes I go and I hear people say, well, I didn't like that wine. That's fine. Part of this is an education. Part of it is trying to find out what you like and why you might like it or why you don't like it. So what I can assure you is that each of these wines is an excellent wine of its type. I can't guarantee that you'll enjoy each of the wine. So we're going to go through, we're going to pour about 1.5 ounces of each of the 6 wines that are listed. Okay, and then afterwards there'll be more wine. There's going to be some food served afterwards. It was fun being at 5 o'clock Mass and smelling those, smelling those food. But I will remind you, so you're going to have 6 wines at about 1.5 ounces each. In order to include a New Jersey wine, I had to go to a dessert wine to get one that I was happy with. So we're going to have the Alba raspberry wine on the table in the back, sort of as a dessert wine, which they'll pour at the end, okay? Just keep in mind how much you're consuming. Make sure somebody's in shape to drive. And what I heard is a little disheartening. Someone told me that Randolph is going to have a drunk driving. I think this is a great time to be a wine consumer. The world is drowning in juice and grapes. Because areas that weren't producing before are producing now. The methods that are used have been improving. In France, actually, some of the winemakers have actually had revolts and marches. A couple of years ago, they had to convert 1 million gallons of French wine into industrial spirits because they couldn't sell it. Okay. The EU has also declared that France and some of the other areas have to rip up a couple 100,000 acres of vines over the next several years because there's just so much in production. So you have great wines coming out now in Chile, Argentina. In Spain, there are areas that, they've always had some great wines, but there's areas that were not very productive before, where they've made the investments and they're making really good wine. So as a consumer, I think it's just a terrific time. And I think there's great values in all price ranges, lower, middle, and upper. So the thing to do is to try to learn as much as you can about wines that you like, and also try to find a good wine dealer, somebody that you trust, that makes recommendations. I have, having picked out the wines for these wines at Gary's, ended up costing me a lot of money this week because I go in there and I always see there's another wine I want to try. And I ask the guys, you got anything to recommend it? And this week alone, I tried 3 wines at the lower price level, and they were all outstanding. Really, really terrific, and I've gone back, bought more for myself and my kids. So I got to try to control myself. So what's the first wine we're going to have tonight? We're going to have a Grauet Brut. Okay, so it's a sparkling wine, and it's from New Mexico, of all places. The grapes are grown at 4,200 feet in Albuquerque. These folks were French champagne makers and came over in late 70s, early 80s and started a winery. You notice I said sparkling wine, not champagne, okay? Everybody knows why? Because Champagne is a place, and unless the wine is made in the Champagne district, it's actually against the law now to use it. And the French have insisted for years, and they finally got another country, and they're right. I mean, it's I know people sometimes find it hard to agree with the French, but in this case, they're absolutely right. It's as if somebody in Bordeaux made a red wine and called it Napa Valley Red. Just wouldn't make sense. So it's sparkling wine. This one is made they have on a method champenois, made like it's made in Champagne. They use the 2 grapes. Most Champagne is made, there's 3 grapes that are allowed in Champagne. 2 of them red, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Okay. Most people don't realize, most Champagne has some red grapes in it. And the reason why it's not colored is because all the color comes from the skin. The juice is extracted before the skin contact. So this wine is made from both Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So basically the grapes of Champagne. Okay. What I'm going to show you now is how to properly open a bottle. If you don't, we may end up in a Christmas story. It'll take your eye out. People think you're supposed to pop the cork and make the sound. Actually, you never cork, you hold. You never pop it. And always keep it covered. As I want it covered because it can pop. Although it has the metal, it's not going to pop through the metal. But once you take that metal off, it can. And one of the reasons why you have the punt and the bottles are so heavy is because it's an amazing amount of pressure built up from the carbon dioxide. So it requires a heavy bottle. So once you take off the metal cap, just keep it covered. Get the metal on the cork and turn from the bottom. Okay? Very, very simple. One of the things you look for in a sparkling wine is, this must have had some silver, but in any case, is the bubbles. And the reason why they tell you to use a flute is so that you get a steady stream bubble. The wide glasses that we used to see called champagne, it flattens it out because it doesn't have. Supposedly that was based, those glasses were based on the breast of one of the queens. I forgot which king of France. And that's how they came up with that wide glass. But you'd rather have a flute. And the smaller the bubble and the steadier the stream, probably the better the quality. Okay? So,
That's why they have those real thin flutes.
what do we look for in a sparkling wine? Usually it's much drier and much more austere. And even though it's made from Chardonnay grapes, the Chardonnay grapes that are used to make champagne or sparkling wine are not like the Chardonnay grapes you would use in making a regular Chardonnay. They're much more acidic and a much different focus. They won't have that butteriness.
It's better than it tastes.
So if we take a look at it, we see it's nice and clear. I'll go over some other tastings. So, are you getting a stream? I'm not getting too much. And if you use the letter S in tasting, it'll guide you. See the wine, and remind me of Norton telling Jackie Gleason, see the ball when you do golf. You want it to be clear. You hope it's not cloudy. If you're drinking a young white wine, you're hoping it's not going to be yellow or gold, unless it's a dessert wine, because that suggests it's been exposed to too much air. Okay, nice and clean looking. Then sip, and then slurp. No, before that, smell. This is one aspect of wine tasting that sometimes people don't pay enough attention to. When you think about it, 75 to 80% of your taste comes from your olfactory senses. So that's very, very important. And then slurp some into your mouth, and then spread it around so that you get it on all parts of your tongue, because we taste things at different parts of your tongue, okay? We taste bitterness on the side, sweetness on the tip, tannin in the back, all right? So let's taste. 3, 7, 4, 5.
7, 4, 5.
David.
David,
Oh, really?
there it is. We got 7, 4,
Oh, he's gonna love it.
Yeah, close enough.
It's close enough. You got it.
6, 7, 7.
Thank you.